Hey, what's going on, Raider Nation? Welcome to another video for the Black and Silver Way. It is your host, Dylan, and today I have a very interesting video to talk about. A news article from Fan Nation came out. Hondo S. Carpenter, Sr., actually, 10 hours ago, posted a huge news article. I'll go ahead and link it down in the description below right now. But this is pretty much elaborating on what really did happen between Carr and the Las Vegas Raiders. We all know that Derek Carr was pretty much pushed out of Vegas, and he was benched. He left the team. Obviously, we have moved on from him, and that's what's going to happen. He even took to note on Instagram, I believe it was 2 or 3 days ago, kind of explaining that, the last 9 years of his stuff, he gave it his all, and he just respects us. He saw us a fire to win a championship, and he will be pursuing to play on another team this season. This article is so interesting. And the reason why I say this, before we get into this, I'm going to try to summarize what this article is, because if you guys go to the article with the link down below, the article is very, very long. It literally breaks it in chronological order from 2018 all the way until about now. And I'm going to tell you guys, as simplified as it can be, of what this whole article is about. There is a lot of questions that us Raider fans have. Derek Carr just kind of got benched, and we're moving on. That's pretty much all we know. And it's based off of, I guess, performance, but there's a lot of things that need to be said from Derek Carr's side and from the Raiders side. As an organization, the Raiders just can't come out and just say what they want to say. It's just not going to happen. They're an actual NFL organization. They're not going to be that honest with us. They're never going to give us that kind of true answers we were looking for, like behind the scenes stuff. But this article kind of just elaborates on everything that happened. And it is quote unquote from a pretty dang good source that has confirmed stuff in the past for us in the last 3 to 4 years since the Raiders have been in Vegas, especially with the whole John Gruden outbreak. So it seems pretty damn real, and especially from friends, families, and anonymous players, there's a bunch of actual facts in each one and stories, real stories about what really went on this year with Derek Carr, McDaniels, and pretty much the Raiders and the organization. So before I get into exactly what the article is really talking about, is I want to kind of just give you an example of kind of where I'm seeing this at, right? We have Derek Carr with his brother that got on, and started talking about, he gave him this, he gave him that, he brought in Devontae, he had this and this, all the animosity with 9 years of all the coaching staffs, and Derek just stayed positive. They're pretty much venting for Derek. Derek is a high-class person. He can't just go out there and just start ripping into the organization, because that's going to be a bad look for his future part of his career, right? For the ending part of his career. So he's going to have his friends and family do it for him, right? So for the Raiders, they're an organization, like I said, NFL organization. They're not going to be able to say their side of the story. When you have a scenario, let's say a marriage, okay? You have one person that's going to have their story. You're going to have one person that's going to have their story, right? And one person's going to say this and this happened. The other person's going to say this and this and this happened. We know where Derek was at, giving it 110%, loved the franchise, had a bunch of coaching staff, a lot of dysfunctional things, everything that the public could see. Obviously, we were following along his whole 9 years with us. It definitely was very dysfunctional. I definitely feel for Derek Carr when it comes to that matter about not having the best stability, besides, yes, staying on the same team, but everything within the organization just plummeting and just not being really stable. I understand that. Not having the best defense for years, I get it, right? I understand Derek Carr's part. Our organization has a lot of moving pieces, a lot of different people, a lot of different coaching staff, right? A lot of different things that we don't know how Derek Carr is when he gets coached behind closed doors. We don't know how Derek Carr is in practice leading up to the games. We don't know how Derek Carr is after getting blown out by our rivalry, and then how he reacts to that during the week. We don't know any of those things. So this article kind of gives a lot of clarity on the situation. Let's kind of get into where the whole timeline is of Derek Carr career with the freaking Las Vegas Raiders / Oakland Raiders, a bunch of things that we really don't know. And it's a lot of pieces that we pretty much are getting pieced together through this article. I've read the whole article. It makes a lot of sense to me personally. You don't have to believe it if you don't want to, but let's get into it. So let's go ahead and talk about everything that any Raider fan ever will know. 2016 was a glory year for Derek Carr. He looked like a top 5 quarterback in the league. He had balls. He was really slinging the ball. And we just had a really fantastic year with Derek Carr. He gets hurt. Jack Del Rio gets fired, and John Gruden takes over. Okay, so when John Gruden takes over, Mark Davis was already, still down for Derek Carr at that point, but had his guard up. By the time John Gruden goes over and things aren't really panning out already, Mark Davis was ready to pull the plug. He was already beginning to start being like his dad, kind of getting a little bit impatient with Derek, especially seeing the regression after 2016. And John Gruden said, hey, Derek Carr's my guy. I see potential in Derek Carr. I really want to make it work with Derek Carr. So Mark Davis letting John pretty much control the whole organization. If you guys remember when John was in our building, he was pretty much the whole guru and everything. So he said, you know what, to John Gruden, I'm going to go ahead and let you keep him. It doesn't matter. If you can make it work, let's make it work. John Gruden started getting a little bit of stability with Derek Carr. They kind of became really good friends, and everything kind of started slowly clicking right there. Then John Gruden's tossed to the side. The NFL absolutely bans him. Derek Carr felt unprotected at that point. He already knew that Mark Davis wasn't too big of a fan of Derek Carr. And pretty much the one thing that was keeping Derek Carr in the organization was John Gruden. Now that John Gruden's gone, he kind of really, fell back on Rich Bisaccia when he took over. And pretty much Rich was a really, really big influencer on Carr. Rich was really, if Rich, in the article it says, if Rich, from players that, in this article that talked anonymously, if Rich trusted you, that was it. You had a voice that Rich was, able to trust you. And Derek Carr felt really bonded with Rich. And he played hard for Rich. And it showed. Derek Carr showed a lot of leadership last season, in 2021 with, the whole Henry Ruggs thing and John Gruden thing. He got us to the playoffs, to the Bengal game. And I really know that Derek Carr really did try his hardest that year. And he had a really good vibe with the locker room and Rich. And I understand that when Rich was left, Derek was really, really hurt. And he really did not want that to happen. A lot of players were bought into Rich. I guess he was a really good motivator, and it seemed like he really had that locker room built, bought into him, which was, really good to see in 2021. When Mark went out and got the whole Ziegler, the Patriots way, he knew he wanted to go that route. He ended up bringing in, Josh McDaniels and Ziegler. And McDaniels already was a fan of Derek Carr because he actually reached out to John Gruden when John Gruden was head coach and was seeing if they were going to be willing to trade Derek Carr. And John Gruden, of course, disregarded that and was not going to trade him over to the Patriots. He wanted to make things work. That was his guy. But when John Gruden was gone, Rich was gone, and, they went up going, Mark wanted to do the whole Patriots way. That's when Ziegler McDaniels really had to sit down and figure out with Mark what is going to be the future of Derek Carr. You got your franchise quarterback that they've never even played with yet, but they just know everything about him, and they've already spoke to him, and he's a high-class person, right? And he's pretty much a coach's pet, from what I've heard. He's very, very, a coach pleaser, right? Whatever they want to do, that's what he's going to run. McDaniels and Ziegler saw some pretty big potential in Derek Carr because at the end of the day, he's not a bad quarterback. So Ziegler and McDaniels and Mark came up with some sort of a contract extension because Derek Carr and his agent really wanted a contract extension done this year. So what they did was Mark was saying we need to have something in place where if the plan does not work out with Derek Carr this season, we need to be able to get out of this contract. And they gave way more than enough money every season for Derek Carr for the extension with a 1-year outing. And you know what? The agent and Derek Carr were able to sign it. And the plan was obviously to be fulfilled and keep Derek Carr on this regime. It was not to just sabotage the season. They were just going to see how he was going to react to this whole new regime and whole new ownership of pretty much the Patriots way. In the early parts of Derek Carr's career, he was playing at a higher level. And when you play at a higher level and you're the face of the franchise quarterback and you're able to win these crucial games, you're going to be put on the pedestal. And I think some coaches are going to be different than other coaches. Everyone has their own style. But John Gruden believing in Derek Carr and becoming a really good friend of Derek Carr and really just having this really unit, feeling and having his back, Derek's back, Derek wasn't getting hard criticism as much as I think he was receiving this year from McDaniels. You also have Rich that came in and was kind of more of like a softie, more like, the team has big morale and let's baby Derek Carr and like make sure that he's really happy. And that's one way to go about it. I'm not saying that's a bad way to go about it. I'm just saying that was their style. Then you have Jack Del Rio that has Derek Carr in his prime, just absolutely going off. And there's really nothing to really complain about because he's absolutely performing at a different level than he was later on in his career. Now they're on year 9, right? So now you have Josh McDaniels that comes in here and supposedly the Patriots way, he has a really, really high standard and he has a lot of high expectations, and he's not just calling out Derek Carr, he's calling out the water boy. I mean, that is what this article is saying. There is players in here that are saying not only where is he calling out Derek Carr, he was calling out the freaking water boys on our team. So he was holding everybody accountable. And he was saying it needs to be a championship, mentality. And he's really just hone in on just going 110% at all times. Everybody's got to be playing and doing their job and really holding people accountable, which is really good to see. Honestly, if I'm a head coach and I have a bunch of different people that I have to oversee and make sure that everyone's doing their job, accountability is going to be the biggest thing that you can do. Doing it certain ways could be, agree to disagree in, some form. I understand that. But what was going on was in this article, it's saying that he was pretty much really going hard on Derek Carr as opposed of like doing it in front of the actual team. And Derek Carr was actually, feeling a little bit disrespected and feeling a little bit, hurt by that. And, even in this article, it says that Lincoln Kennedy has the utmost respect for Derek Carr. But over these years, as soon as he gets criticized, he acts like a little baby, like a little kid. And that's coming from Lincoln Kennedy that's been in our organization for the past 25 years. So it's kind of crazy, and then if you guys remember, when Derek Carr would get criticized from other people and talked about it, I mean, he kind of just really would actually respond to it and be a little bit hurt about it on Twitter and stuff. So if you got just new head coach really coming in, just cutthroat, and it's a new regime, new plays, Derek Carr is trying to adapt to that. Then you got him just being held accountable at a high standard, right, that he's never really had before. And a guy that really, he doesn't even know if Josh McDaniels really has his back. So he started kind of isolating himself throughout the season. And it's telling this in this article that multiple players said that Derek Carr started getting more isolated and distant from other players for the first time in a long time. These players were seeing Derek Carr slowly kind of break down because he was getting a lot of criticism from the coach. And, this is kind of what happened with Josh McDaniels when he went to Denver. But I mean, he was just ready to just fire people left and right. This one is just saying that he was being fair to him. These players are not saying that McDaniels was treating him any other way because he was treating other people the same exact way. And this is the pivotal moment of where the decline and the separation happened from Derek Carr and Josh McDaniels and the Las Vegas Raiders. So when they barely lost the Kansas City Chiefs, what Josh McDaniels was telling the team was that is the golden standard of what we need to be playing every single week. You guys showed up, you practiced different this week, and we need to continue to do that every single week. And he was saying, we lost that game. I don't feel good about that game. Even though we played well, I still feel horrible about that game because we lost that game. He was trying to tell Derek Carr, I'm not going to say, pat you on the back like you've always had. He told Derek Carr he's not into morale victories. And I feel like that's what Derek Carr was really getting used to, guys. Morale victories, highs and lows, but not really completing the job. And that's the story of Derek Carr's career, guys, is morale victories. And that's what McDaniels said is not going to be accepted. So after McDaniels kind of really put a cold shoulder against Derek on Kansas City, saying, don't be happy with yourself on that one because we didn't fucking win that game. Which makes a lot of sense. Tough love, dude. We got to know how to beat the fucking Kansas City Chiefs. They are the standard of the NFL, and we need to be just as good as them. So the following weeks, when we played Houston and we beat them by like 17 points, McDaniels said that he was actually disappointed in the Raiders thing. And there's players that said that after in the locker room that day, McDaniels was one to be like, hey, guys, we beat the Texans. That's great. But we didn't play at the same level we did play with KC. Because if we were playing at the KC level against the Texans, we should have blown them out by 40 points. So he was actually disappointed in the team. And it actually hurt Derek Carr that he was not actually getting more like love and more support from it. It was almost like Derek was not used to getting this sort of criticism, guys. So he felt more isolated and more hurt by it. So the following week when we played the Saints, he didn't even get us past the 50. And that's where the really, really red flag happened. That's where Derek Carr really isolated himself and really kind of shut down on himself mentally. And that's kind of where he started slowly losing the locker room. Then you have the Colts loss on top of that. And that's where Derek Carr really breaks down and everything because he knew that mentally this was not fun anymore. And that's what they're saying in this. And many players were saying it just seemed like Derek Carr wasn't having fun anymore. And he was mentally letting Josh McDaniels get to him because I feel like he just really has never been held that much accountable. And then you have the thought that Mark Davis at any point can just bench his ass, which sure enough, it was inevitable. That's exactly what happened. So after we ended up losing the Colts game and then he ends up losing the Steeler game, Mark had enough and he was ready to take that opt out. Why would they have extended Derek Carr, guys? Why would they have done that in the first place? If they really had no aspiration to keep him whatsoever, they would have iced the agent and Derek Carr and said, let's see how this year is going to go, and then we'll talk about a contract extension. Instead, they felt so good about Derek Carr in the beginning of the season, they said, you know what, we're going to lock you in because I think we're going to be able to get it done, but we do have to have this exit just in case. And they ended up utilizing that exit because Derek Carr at the end of the day was being held really at a high standard, and I feel like he really just shut down on himself, was isolating, felt like him and McDaniels didn't have his back enough. And at the end of the day, guys, Derek Carr does need to be held at a high standard. We need a coach that's going to be cutthroat and really need to hold these people accountable because look at the Chiefs doing this little dance around us at the end, guys. I mean, they are just absolutely controlling the NFL. It looks like a damn practice against us when they play us, and that's just absolutely embarrassing and not acceptable. I am tired of these morale victories. It's no such thing. We need to actually go in there and we need to finish games, and that's pretty much what the thing's about. Like I said, you have people that are speaking for Derek Carr's situation, but you got to kind of hear where it comes from our organization, and this thing really does just load into like everything behind the scenes, step by step from 2018 all the way till now. It's a really good read, guys, but this is the last time I'm going to talk about Derek Carr, but I'll tell you this much, guys. McDaniels and the Ziegler thing, I know you guys are tripping that it was handled the way it was handled, but at the end of the day, guys, Derek Carr needs a fresh start. We need a fresh start. And if that's, with the whole Tom Brady thing, Aaron Rodgers thing, I don't even know what's really going to happen this offseason. But if you guys can, make sure to be subscribed to the channel because we're going to be doing updates all season on the offseason. But I'm still really excited, guys. Even though we lost Derek Carr, it did feel very weird for the first couple days there. At the end of the day, guys, I don't think that we were sabotaging Derek Carr. I feel like it was just ready to go. Mark Davis already was on the fence. He's seen enough from Derek Carr. That's why the benching came from Mark Davis. That was confirmed when it happened, and he stepped in and he couldn't handle it anymore. Comment down below. Let me know what you guys think. I think that this article is pretty damn real. I really do, guys. I don't think all this can be made up. And I feel like the organization pretty much gave him this and like he put it out himself. Like, I feel like this is the way of the organization responding to the whole allegations of the Derek Carr falling out with the Raiders. I'll see you guys on the next video. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Peace.